There we go. So I'm just going to read this little bit and then I want you to tell us who you are in your words because that's more fun.
Awesome.
So,
Okay.
hey, everybody, welcome to the She's the Owner podcast. I'm your host, Karen McCarran. Thank you for listening to the show. Today, we have somebody that I met very recently at an event last week in London, Kathleen Black. Welcome to the show.
Right.
And she did a little talk at the event I was at. And as soon as I saw her, I'm like, this is my people. I need to get her on the podcast. It was a real estate conference, but the energy was very spiritual and very like, just, just in line with the way that I think about business and the way that I talk about business and coaching. And so I hit her up at the event and said, I'm going to reach out. And we did. And she's here on the podcast really quickly because that's what women like us tend to do. We move quickly. So I'm just going to read her little bio just out of respect. But really, we always know we like to hear it from the person themselves. It always sounds a lot better. But so, Kathleen Black is the CEO of North America's leading performance based team coaching and training platform, delivering her proven success techniques to individuals and teams around the world. The success of KBCC centers around integrity, honesty, and results driven measures, the very things that represent Kathleen. With growth worth billions in additional sales volume annually across her client network, 80% of her clients being national top 1% producers, Kathleen, two-time best-selling author of Relentless to Rise and The Top 1% Life, will help you to expand your business at a fraction of the time and cost using her tried, tested, and true systems, exactly what she's done for thousands of her clients before you. So that's a mouthful. And it sounds like, I mean, that would have taken you a lot of time and pain and all of those things. So tell me a little bit about why real estate, how you became a
Mhm.
coach, just to, give us a sense of your journey from wherever you want to start.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, real estate, I kind of, as many, stumbled into, and I didn't stumble into it intending to sell or become a realtor. I've coached at this point literally thousands of people, some real estate, some not. But there's a small fraction who knew, hey, I want to get into real estate. But the majority, that's not the case. And I would say that's the same with me. So I came out of university and I'd met my husband and we started working on investment properties, a lot of sweat equity. And eventually he kept saying, you really need to get your real estate license because our realtor was nice, like values wise, we were aligned. But when it came to assessing investment properties, there just wasn't a match there. So I was ending up to do kind of all of our numbers and analytics, and I'm kind of micromanaging the negotiations because I know what we need to make it all work. And back then, I mean, everything was cash flow positive. It was a different time. So I mean, you could make money like fixing up a house, pulling out money, moving on, but also having monthly like cash flow happening. So eventually I had decided to get licensed, intending just to grow our portfolio. To be honest, I had two little kids under 5. I really didn't want another job. I was already managing, our properties and our tenants. And I mean, I was there like, sleeves rolled up doing like manual labor and the dirty work. And that's part of it. And that's okay. Right. I don't regret that. But I got into real estate and the pressure of, building investments was so little money. Like it was so much sweat equity. It was a lot
Right.
of will. Like we had monthly cash flow, but we needed it because we were, investing and building in the projects we were in. So there was a lot of stress. I mean, our friends joke that we were the no money miracle, kind of like the old, I think, furniture or appliance store, whatever it was. So eventually the stress was just too hard on my marriage. We ended up to
Yep.
separate and I had just become licensed in real estate. Like I was still training. I wasn't actively even selling yet. And I was, had that fork in the road moment. Like, what do you do? Because I had a background in managing busy dental offices, like very systematic. It worked really well for what I do with teams. But at the time, it's like you got two little kids, right? Like, do you
Right.
play it safe and go back to managing dental offices and have set income and hours and stability? Or do you take a risk, invest in yourself and go towards something with a brighter future, but a lot of volatility and a lot of risk. So I leaned into real estate and I just wanted to get some security. And to be honest, I was also going through the family court system. And that's not a motivating place to be. Like anybody
Right.
who's been there, you know, the old courthouse in Oshawa is now gone, thank goodness, because if you envision like an 80s cop show, you
Yeah.
know, that it felt like you were underground and like bars on the windows. Like
Oh,
you walk in there and you feel like, wow, I failed at life. Like that's how I felt
right.
when I walked in there. And to be honest, it made me really angry. I felt like here I am with my two little kids, like I'm just trying to navigate my path and find security. And I feel like I don't have enough money to navigate my path and I've got nothing
Right.
going for me right now. And that's when I really made the decision, like, I'm going to get really, really good at this because nobody's going to chart my course or protect my family but me. I'm going to make sure I have the resources for that. And that ended up for me to sell 44 homes in my first year in real estate, which would
Wow.
make me top 1% in the largest real estate board in the world. But that wasn't the goal. The goal was like, how the heck am I going to do this? And
Yeah.
within a couple of years, I was already coaching. You know, I was selling more homes at that point, coaching 30 clients. And I actually started running the first team specific coaching company in real estate for Canada. And in 2015, I sold my shares. I sold my half of the company. I stopped running it and I opened, it's moving to Kathleen Black Inc., but Kathleen Black Coaching and Consulting, December 1st, 2015. So
Amazing.
it's been 14 years. Yeah. Like full-time
Wow.
coaching, speaking, and yeah, it's a great industry.
So this podcast, I don't know if you've had, because we did this so quickly, I don't know if you've had a chance to really dig into it, but what I mean, so the underpin and the foundation of She's the Owner podcast is really talking about masculine and feminine energy with women in business, because as I'm sure you know, when we had our very brief chat, like a lot of business women are predominantly in the masculine because we have to be.
Sure.
If we're not, we can't get shit done. And then it tends to bleed into our natural, like into our family life, into our
Sure.
into our children. Mine, I've got 4 daughters.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about, because you mentioned, and it was the words that came to my mind were mama bear, like, and I directly relate to that. I was a single mom for a while when my oldest, now she's 26, but when she was younger. Talk a little bit about, just so the women, because the women tend to think it's one or the other, and it is in the beginning, but you seem to have balanced it now. And just
Yeah.
that's just because your energy, I can feel it. Like you understand how to balance that a bit more now, obviously. But talk a little bit about the mama bear feeling and like that masculine energy that you had to like call on to get shit done, to get yourself out
Sure.
of that feeling.
Yeah, and I know, and I think I'm really careful about how I talk about masculine and feminine energy. And I, I'm grateful that I've been able to work with, shaman and medicine women who are very
Mm.
progressive and traditional. They honor lineage and how they've been trained. And I mean, that's their journey, not mine. I'm thankful to have worked with some of them. But I mean, I really appreciate the shift into, we all have masculine and feminine energies. We all have divine masculine, divine feminine energies, and we all have profane, which is the negative side, the shadow side, the dark side. And I think, there's this new wave coming back of very much you're a woman. When you're
Right.
not in feminine energy, then you're repelling a man and you're dominating his masculine energy. It's like, whoa, 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 right? We're all, you hear people talk about, for example, like, and this will make sense in a second, but like neurotypical
Hmm.
neurodiversity, which is basically like our brains operate differently. And you'll hear people say, oh, they're on the spectrum. I'm so grateful to the thought leaders, and I hope to contribute as one who are moving towards humanity is one big spectrum. It's
Mm.
one big spectrum.
It
Some of
is.
us, right? Some of us understand our neuro gifts. Some of us have used what the traditional world thinks are our adversaries or negatives as our gifts, right? Like it's very much a perspective thing. And some of us, we all have a beautiful harmony of masculine and feminine energies. And I believe that we can access them when they need them. And if
Yep.
you're a woman who's more masculine, it doesn't mean you're off. Maybe you're built that way perfectly, but if it's not resonating for you, if it's causing issues in your business or your life, then hey, that's a call that you want to shift a
Yep.
little bit, right? So I'm really careful about that because, as a woman, and navigating parenting and
Hmm.
relationships and friendships and business, sometimes it's very much, well, you're too powerful and you're too strong, and that's, again, that's a problem, and we have to get you out of that masculine energy, and that's
Hmm.
negative. Sometimes too, I think it can be confused. The divine feminine is powerful. It
Oh,
is not
yes.
weak. It is not soft. It is powerful. And the divine feminine are there to say, hey, I'm going to put a line around me, around my family. And that's kind of like the mama bear. And I'm going to
Yep.
say what goes here. And that's really important because that's healthy boundaries. And when we go way back and we look at leadership, there was all this thought leadership by men to men at the
Mhm.
time to say, hey, you need to give more, you need to lean in more. And then all of a sudden it shifted towards, okay, we're going to support women. And the message was, you need to lean in more, you need to give more. No, feminine energy naturally, if it's in the profane, is over giving. It's leaning
Right.
in too much. And that's why it gets resentful. So when we're powerful, we're like, hey, we do stand our ground. So my business success does fall into, I know how to speak masculine very easily. I
Mhm.
have an active left brain. Like for those of you who know Myers-Briggs or DISC, like I'm an INTJ. It's 0.08% of the female population, right, in the world. So it's like the mastermind. So I'm naturally more analytical, and I'm a DC, not off the charts. I can flex, but DC and DISC for anyone who studies it. So, I'm more left brain, but some people believe that we go very logical and very analytical because of hardship or trauma or
Right.
difficulty. So, part of my journey is that I've really invested to even out my hemispheres. So,
Right.
I've spent like hundreds of thousands in personal development, both because I'm a coach and I want new tools to help people, but I
Yep.
also need to help myself first. Like that's the truth. So I've really worked to like lean into my creative side and the right brain and even out and give myself permission, because for a long time building my business, like I would hear things, I would say, oh, that person's doing so great, I'm so impressed by her, and someone would say, oh yeah, they were sleeping with their broker, they didn't really.
Right.
And it always irked me, so I denied myself like a lot of things in my
Yep.
personal life. I was like, nobody's going to say they created my success, right? Like
Right.
I'm going to do it. So yeah, I think it's just so important to figure out our personal harmonies. And again, what resonates
Mhm.
and what doesn't. It's not good or bad. It's
No,
just it resonates
it
or it
isn't.
doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love what and thank you for that. And I feel, I mean, that's very much the way that I look at it, because I'm naturally more an alpha female. Like that's just naturally how I thrive, because otherwise people my clients wouldn't listen to me coach them either if I wasn't able to bring that to the table. And I think there has been, because there's a lot of woo woo, but it's
Mhm.
bullshit woo woo. It's not like they're not doing the work. They go do a weekend away and they come back and they're
Yeah.
like, now I'm a, and it's like, there's the beautiful parts, there's the ugly parts, there's the parts we
Yeah.
deny, there's all of this stuff within us. And I think oftentimes when I've spoken to women about the feminine, they're like, it's like they reject it and they resist it so hard because they have this idea that it's just floating on lily pads and we're just passively like being wifey. And I'm like, if you really dip into it and you really like own and harness it, like in your body it feels powerful. and
Yeah.
and it's like, our bodies are literal portals for other humans. Like that's a
Yeah.
powerful, beautiful thing. And I think that there is this, because of conditioning, right? Like conditioning over time, it's the idea that you have to be one or the other. And there's no dance between them. Even men, like men, when they're in their divine feminine, that, like, I don't, if you agree or not, but
Yeah.
that is a beautiful thing to
Absolutely.
witness. Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
But then it's also beautiful to witness the divine masculine. So I do think that there is this, the pendulum kind of goes one way and then it goes way the other way, and now we're just trying to right the ship. And I think everybody's trying to find balance in that, especially in business. And I love what you said about if it's not working, because that is the trick. It's that
Mhm.
piece where if you're feeling, and ladies who are listening, it's not it the always listen to the body. The body's always going to be your first line of something's up. And if for me, my journey was, I started to realize like I was crunchy and pissy all the time. And I was talking to my kids like they were in my
Yeah.
company, and I was, we gotta go, we gotta go. And that energy, that's not divine masculine. That's a bunch of other things. And so
Yeah.
I think it's important, like if it's not working, like you said, that's a call to just sit with it and start getting curious about, why do I feel like I need to rush everybody out the door all the time? Why do I feel like I need to raise my voice all the time? Um,
Mhm.
when it comes to coaching, so do you coach more women or men, or is it an even balance?
Yeah, I'd say initially, I mean, it's funny because there's some pictures of me that we used for years. They're actually in Vancouver at the Fairmont. And it's a huge, room. And somebody pointed out to me many years later, like, Kathleen, like every single person in that room's a man, and not just a man, a really high performing leader. I was like, oh, I never really noticed. And I think it's because, in the real estate space, like 80% of our team level clients are top 1% nationally. Even our solopreneur, like the majority are top 10%, top 5%. So, I mean, we deal in high performance, which is different. It's very different. I
Hmm.
did a talk this week where I said to people, what comes to mind when you think of stress? And it was a keynote, like somebody just said tongue in cheek, you. And I said, I'm so glad you said that, because we're talking about, this is important for divine, masculine, or feminine, or profane. So 98% of the population, this is part of what I talked about at the talk we were at together, Caro, 98% of the population are in a away from mentality, which means
Hmm.
they're trying to avoid, fear or loss. But that's also why they don't come across confidently, because you can be in feminine energy, but be insecure because you
Yep.
want people like you and you want approval and you're not sure what you're wearing. And hey, that's part of our human journey. Like, we've all
Yep.
been there when we're young, and or when we've been through a transition, forget being young, right? And we get rocked a little bit. But the 2% on the inside, they're navigating their own path, so they're not as concerned, right? They're more about
Right.
what feels good for me, what resonates, where am I going, how do I want to contribute, and not in a selfish way. They're of service, but they
Right.
trust their aspirations because they trust themselves, and that's really important. So I think, when it comes to that, there is a need. There are times where I see women in the coaching space, and and it is a stereotype and it's not fair, but they do come across a little bit too fluffy or too soft. And even me, I'll be
Yep.
like, don't be judgmental, like, hold space. But the reason I see them that way is not from the feminine energy. It's because they're not commanding their voice. And
Right.
when they're not commanding their voice, it's very hard to have authority. So as women speaking and supporting men, and men supporting us, able to have mastery and authority in our craft. And if I can't confidently have higher energy than you in my area of specialty, how am I going to influence and
Right.
support you? People take action based on confidence and believing that something better will happen if they act on that. And if I can't create that portal or container, I can't help people shift. And that's what I
Right.
live for.
Yep.
So I think for me, it's more about that, like how you
Right.
hold your power.
Yeah. And that's it. Like the piece you just said, whoever is more certain in a discussion or an argument even wins. Certainty always wins in those
Yeah.
cases, right? And so,
Yeah.
and that does demand a certain, you know, like when I talk about masculine, I say it's like an oak tree. And if I know the person in front of me is like an oak tree, then I'm happy to be led, and I'm happy to even that word, there's still so many women who are like, oh, nobody's leading me, right? And it's like the divine feminine wants to be led in a lot of areas, not all areas, but that feeling of, do you do Tony Robbins stuff? It sounds like
I have in
you
the
have.
past. Yeah, I'm a
Okay.
firewalker, proud
Oh, good girl.
firewalker.
Me too. But it's, and Alison Armstrong, she's, the Queen's Code, and she's really one of the mentors that I've learned from. She was on the podcast a couple of years ago. And it's like, if we feel seen, safe, and understood, then we can,
Yeah.
and that doesn't just mean in intimate relationship, right? Like, I
Yeah.
have friends who feel that way with me because I lead them in the masculine, and they can be feminine when they're normally masculine. And that's a beautiful dance. And I think it's, it's, I don't like to say about, I don't like to talk about things too in that too foofy way, because then you lose a lot of people, right? So I like how you speak about it very practically and so somebody can understand it in a real world way. So who are some of your mentors? Like, who are some of the people that you just go, oh my God, like it just all clicked for you and everything made sense? Do you have anybody in
You know, it's
particular?
it's interesting. I mean, I'm more naturally an introvert, so I've always read a lot. And for years I said all my mentors are long dead, right? Like, they're
Mm-hmm.
people, I like reading as they thinketh, or as a man think. I change it
Mm-hmm.
naturally. Like, the secret before the secret, like everything we think is new has something
Yep.
before it. But I would say it's a combination. I don't believe any one person could ever be anybody's like guru or
No.
master, because there's different people that I respect in family and in business and in nutrition and in health. So I try to go to different people of those areas of mastery, which is kind of ironic because my company is holistic high performance. So I mean, we do talk about nutrition but we have experts in all those
Yeah.
different areas. So I wouldn't say I have one. I have many,
Mhm.
in business and mentors. I'd also say when I was building my business for a long time, I didn't have any, female mentors. I had a couple of male mentors. And now that I have more, I see how much it helps like propel your career and supports you.
Yeah.
But being a woman in real estate and coaching, like all of our top coaches, all still in North America are men, all of
Mm.
them. And the majority, like we're 60 to 70% women on the sales force. And I mean, broker ownership's getting better. But when you look at like our C level, like the top of the top, no, like there was an article that just came out based on Canadian leadership. It was less than 6% are actually like
Yeah.
CEOs are at the very top of the top in the companies. So like, hey, we're doing better in other places, but they're saying it would take 40 years at this rate to
Wow.
actually have the equity people are claiming we have now. Right.
Wow.
So yeah. I
So
mean,
so get
I shouldn't say it. Like I read, I read all like Paulo Coelho. I love Elizabeth Gilbert. I mean, I love Untamed as a book. Some people loved or hated
Mhm.
it. I loved it. I was just like, this is just pure genius. I mean, there's a lot. I'm an avid reader. Like I love listening to Gabby Bernstein while I'm doing stuff in my house. I feel like it's meditative for me.
Mm.
And to me, the woo woo isn't fluff because I study the brain science. So when
Yeah.
people go, oh, whatever, I'm like, here, let's talk about the science.
Right.
I love combining the two.
Yeah, Joe Dispenza is really good for that, because and I say woo woo because there's still this camp who's like, oh, that's bullshit. It doesn't mean that doesn't actually work. Da, da, da. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Just let's talk about neuroscience for a second. Let's talk about and
Yeah.
because there are the people that need to know.
Why?
They don't go blind faith. They need to know the
Yeah.
why. I'm like that too. I think to a certain extent, I like to know. Give me the give me
Sure.
the guts of why this is going to work for me. But yeah, I do love Joe Dispenza, and Byron Katie's one of my all-time
Oh,
favorites.
yeah.
She's just like that was pivotal in everything for me, like
Mhm.
early on, was arguing with reality. Like I've lost both my parents, and I argued with that reality for a hot minute and it wasn't pleasant. And then but as soon as you start to accept the reality, then you can actually move past it and take some action to do something different. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I love that. So what do you do for fun?
Oh my goodness. I do all sorts of things for fun. I mean, I also like speaking for me is fun. I do
Mhm.
love it. And I think it's interesting. Something you said, the woo woo, they resist it, but I think that's the key. There's resistance. Like when we're not
Yeah.
ready to see things or go through them, we're going to resist, resist, resist. And that's what that gentleman in the talk was doing. I said, hey, 98% of you in this room don't really love what I'm saying. You're not really
Right.
welcoming it because I'm pushing you to take responsibility and take
Right.
action. I'm okay with that because I know where I'm standing
Yep.
and I had to shift to get there. So I totally understand like that's your choice. So for fun, I like to do a lot of things that I like. They always say you can transition physically or mentally, right? Like you go on a
Mhm.
great journey physically or mentally. So for fun, I love to hike. Like in August, I did Kilimanjaro, the highest
Wow.
peak in the African continent above sea level. I think it's one of the top in the world above sea level, but it's got an interesting vortex, I guess, of energy because
Mhm.
of altitude. So it was very difficult. Last year I did Salkente Pass and into Machu Picchu and Huayna Picchu. I love to go on a journey. I've done the Camino de Santiago, 840 kilometers because I
Yes.
got lost a little bit.
That was what you brought that up in your talk, I
Yeah.
believe. I caught a
Yeah.
little bit of that. Amazing.
Yeah. I love the new projects, developing things like that makes me happy. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you okay, so if you're not climbing giant peaks, what do you do sort of like more on a daily basis to I mean,
Yeah.
decompress, that's sort of
Sure.
like the thing. But
Yeah.
how do you turn yourself down after a really crazy day of just crushing it?
Yeah, well, I mean, sleep, like I require a
Mm.
lot more sleep now. I mean, I used to not know the difference, maybe because I wasn't as tired between like I'm tired and I need to go to the gym and build energy because exercise builds energy. So like
Yep.
I protect yoga and walking and working out and all of those kinds of things. I'm very active because my visions are up here in frequency. So I need to stay not fully there because it's hard, but as close as I can. So I mean, I do guard my sleep because it came a point where it was like, oh, this isn't just tired. This is like body, soul, mind fatigue. And that's
Right.
different. And that's when
Yeah.
you need to rest. And I mean, women's bodies and hormones, we're different. Like you talk about those 5 a.m. clubs, like one of the top ways to burn yourself out and put your cortisol through the roof and have adrenal fatigue and all this stuff is to try to operate the way men do for high performance as a woman.
I
Like,
love you. I feel like you're my new best friend. It's so
but
nice. But it's true, and no one's talking about it. So I love that you're saying this. You're 1,000% accurate. Beautiful.
well, it's like you go, and I think it's hard because I mean, I support people like, yeah, I'm doing, I feel good. It's like you do feel good, but for a certain period of time till you burn out hard, right?
Yep.
And that it's just we know we need that rest, like we
Mhm.
do. Like women's bodies need rest, the majority of them, or biologically. So I mean, I try now to have some downtime. I mean, I have an Aura ring now, and it would say I don't have as much downtime as I think I do. It's like you had no downtime yesterday. I'm like, what? What do you mean? I feel like I did. Yet when I took my daughter and I went with my sister and niece to Harry Potter, it's like, we think you were napping. I'm like, I'm not napping. So it's kind of funny, right? To get the
Yeah.
perspective. But I try to walk, be active, spend time with my partner, spend time with my children. You know, that's really important to me. Family. Like right now, I'm able, some like my schedule now is lighter because what I did to build for 10 years, like would have taken my body out. I couldn't sustain it anymore. So I've had to realize that my business has gone like this, like this, like this. And you talk about energy, like all these people are, even if I'm not doing the work, it's flowing through me. And
Yep.
and let alone the clients, like that's all on top of it. And I want to make sure that I'm a good space for them to be in. So I've altered my schedule where I have front facing days, inward days where I can come from the gym. If I don't feel like I can wear what I'm wearing and just get work
Yep.
done. I go to Starbucks where I put on like dive immersion holosync, which helps align your right and left brain hemispheres. It's
Mhm.
like Ritalin, but not Ritalin. Like it's
Wow.
amazing. Just hyper zone in. So I go and get that done so that like keeps my mental state well. But really it's like walking, yoga, taking time and just going to sleep on time. Like that's a
Yeah.
huge one for me. Yeah.
One of the things I really sincerely do love that you brought it up because even there's so many men that I respect in the personal development space who do still advocate this. You don't need that much sleep, guys. Da da da. And it's like the world, the world of business, the clock, even our clock is really designed for a man's hormone reset, right? They reset in 24 hours. It takes us 28 days. I'm perimenopausal right now, so I'm all over the damn place. And even intermittent fasting, like my ex-husband is educating me on. There's a book he read for me. He's a very good ex-husband, called
Um,
Fast Like a Girl. And
ah,
it's radically different than the boys. And I think that's part of the conversation that needs to happen, is just sort of saying to, like, because I will talk to men all the time and say, yeah, that works for the guys, but it
yeah.
doesn't work for us. And for us to function at our highest level,
Mhm.
and I always say, we make people. We need more sleep. Even if you're not actively making people, you still
Yeah.
need more. And I think that the burnout, I want to talk about the burnout really quickly, but it's a real thing. And I think that's when it's the signal to a woman, it's time to balance the lion, the hunter, with the gatherer, because we've gone too far. So have you ever experienced like crazy burnout where you're like, holy shit, I'm throwing it all in, I'm done, I'm gonna go sell tacos on the beach?
Oh, for sure. I
Which
mean, I
isn't a
think
bad thing.
honestly, I'm trying to no, no. I mean, I mean, I think trying to like, yeah, it's a whole other, I don't know if you said sell from the beach, but there's the whole wave of like, I want to be able to work from wherever. And I remember going through that and then getting there, be like, I'm here, but all I'm doing is working. Like, this wasn't what I thought it was going to
This was
be.
not on the agenda. What the hell?
No.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, no, no, no. I've on seasons and off seasons where I just like that's how I go climb these mountains and things like that. But I think like there are some amazing women like really doing amazing work in this. And there's a new app. I didn't know that what is it called? Because it linked up with my Aura ring and it's based on your menstrual cycles and your phases and your hormones. And it links it in called Wild AI. So it gives you extra data. But I don't know if you follow Stephanie Estima, like she
No.
has a podcast and she brings on a lot of women, not just women, but mostly I think women who are specialists, right? In like burnout and like the actual data biology of us, like our hormones and women, and talking about, hey, this isn't the same for us. And here's why, and here's the research. And
Right.
I think it's interesting when you talk about commanding voice because women seem to be able to get a little bit higher, but then they don't let them through. And it's not them who won't let us through, it's us as
Right.
consumers. We're the ones like watching this stuff and listening, right? Like there are major conferences and you go and you're like, every single main stage speaker was a white male.
Mm.
How is this happening?
Right.
And you're in a room that's majority women. Like we can't model what we don't see, but also we can't model as leaders what we haven't been through. Like we need to
Right.
make sure that we're bringing in other people. So have I burnt out? Yeah, because I'm constantly trying to evolve and impact more people. And for a long time as a business leader, I thought I had to get better. And I think that's a good quality. I was like, you need to learn more, you need to offer more. Even when my coach is like, you have so much content, you have more than the Ontario Real Estate Board. Like, please stop. Like,
Stop.
you don't need more. But in my head, and clients, like, there's so much like we can't navigate at times because I was
Yeah.
like, well, we need all the things, right?
Right.
And I got to the point where I was like, wow, I don't need to be better. And in essence, I'm doing the quintessential woman thing. Oh, you need more experience, you need more tools, you need more, you need more. The reason that you aren't being given those opportunities is because you haven't quite earned it yet.
Right.
Bullshit. Realize like our results are as better or as good or better, much better than a lot of some of the bigger organizations because they're catering to average. We cater to high performance. Like we're kicking ass. And I'm okay saying that. So I had to step into, in order to make an impact, you have to stop building and allow yourself to own space and advocate. And I never used to do that. So now I've shifted into trying to stop trying to deplete myself, which led to
Right.
big burnout. But I think entrepreneurs too, like we are extreme people sometimes. So, maybe we need a vacation. Maybe we need a good night's rest and we'll be like, I'm done. I think I can't do it anymore, and it's like, oh, I needed a nap,
Yeah.
right? So there's that, but there's also, yeah, there's been burnout. I think during times like after I sold my initial coaching company because it was a really difficult time. Like the company, when I finally took it over and they had to open the books, I found out it was in like just under almost $200,000 in debt. Like the company was only live a couple years, and debt, you couldn't go bankrupt, like bad debt, right?
Right.
And I'm going, all right, I own half of all of this debt as a new business owner. And I
Yeah.
worked really hard to clean it up. And any business owners listening, we know how that feels. Like you have to be so tight. Like everything's got to be in the black. Everything has to make money or break even. And most of your money is going to pay off all this debt. So when we finally got out of it, my silent partner all of a sudden was like, oh, now that you're supposed to be paid fairly as we agreed, and you've gotten this company that they thought was going to go bankrupt. That's like I was helping take their liability, right?
Right.
So when it all came back up, they're like, oh, we want to go in a different direction, and literally locked the doors and tried to take my half of my company from me and betted on the fact that I was a single woman, I was a
Yep.
single mom. What the hell was I going to do? And though that was one of those moments after that, I went through depression, honestly,
Yep.
and burnout because I had to look in the mirror and be like, I missed my kids' games. I've missed birthdays. I've missed like this was another baby, right? And
Yep.
how am I going to look at myself if I don't stand up? So I leveraged, like I mortgaged my house and I got a lawyer downtown and I fought. And in the end, whether I won or not, I already won because it
Yep.
was about character
You
for
stood
me.
up. Yeah. You stood
Yeah,
up to
but at
it.
the end, I got so much more than I would have ever gotten because what happened, they were like, we don't understand. Like, people just don't do things like this. Like,
Right.
why? Right. But after that, there was burnout. Like, my body just wanted to sleep all day long. Like, I went to energy healers and doctors. And the problem with burnout is, I think, we go, 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 we fall in the hole, we're really tired, we get out, and then our body gives us hints and we're not
Mm-hmm.
paying attention and we think, oh, I did it before, I know now. Okay, it's going to be a couple
Yeah.
weeks. Burnout is worse and deeper every single time. And it's worse and deeper on purpose because I've done it many times, ignore our
Yep.
body saying, no, 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 something is wrong. Like you're extra tired, your brain fog. Or for me, I get like almost like a light fever
Mm.
that happens. It's not a fever, like anxiety and heart palpitations, like really, really weird things. And the exhaustion, it's not tired, it's exhaustion. It's like you wake up and you're just like, I'm so exhausted.
Exhausted.
Like I don't need, and it almost feels a bit like depression for me, burnout, because to not have energy feels
Yeah.
like you're almost not living,
Yeah.
right?
No,
So yeah.
um and I think, and I mean, one of the things that I say in my own content is that either you listen consciously or your body will tell you eventually.
Yeah.
And it can be serious, and I know, and a
Yep.
lot of that too comes from not just current burnout but not healing stuff that you need to heal. A lot of women we're masters at ignoring stuff that happened to us and traumas that happened to us as young women and children and whatever. And
Yeah.
again, a lot of people, oh, that doesn't, there's a lot of coaches that go, let's not focus on the past. Let's just move forward and da 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 da, and this sort of like energy. And no, you don't want to live in the past, but you certainly need to address it, especially in the body, right? Like our cells remember, trauma lives in the body. Like, and we
Mhm.
talk a lot about shamanic healing and dancing and just moving the body and shaking and doing all of those things. And I love, because it feels like women like you and I in this moment, we're understanding the business side of it, and
Mhm.
the internal side of it has to come together to really get us to take those stages and do all
Mhm.
the things that we talk about. Oh, we don't have yeah, we have the opportunities, but
Yeah.
if you're unhealed or you have things in there that are preventing you from taking the stage, then
Mhm.
the outcome is the same. You're still not on the stage, regardless
Well,
of the
that's
reason,
it.
right?
Well, it's like taking off. Like as leaders, it's even more important for us to heal. And do I think sometimes it goes like I saw something posted like the most important thing in the world isn't your feelings and everything isn't trauma. And yeah, that's true, but there also is trauma. There
Yeah.
also is real
Yeah.
trauma, right? And as leaders, like we have a responsibility because when you talk about generational trauma, there's also ways that we lead that comes from ego, that comes from pain, that's detrimental to all the people around us. And to
Yep.
think it doesn't impact them is naive. It 100% does. And it hurts our businesses
Yep.
because when we're not expansive, like when we're expansive, things flow and they move forward. When we're stuck or we're negative, we're contagious and things contract. The people around us go like this, or what are they going to say? What did I do wrong now? What's
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah.
And I've been that leader. And I've been times where I didn't go to the office because, and I still say, we have no business showing up with other people as leaders unless we're asking for support and we're being open and vulnerable. That's different. But if you're trying to come in and lead people and you're in a
Mhm.
negative frame of mind, what business do you have
Right.
interrupting where they are? You set the tone, right?
Yep.
So yeah, like healing through trauma and understanding like it a couple of years ago now, or maybe, yeah, almost a couple of years ago, I came out of something that was very, very traumatic for me. And I got a huge lesson from, the universe, wherever you want to say, energetically on being naive, because I was so much in like people are good. And I still believe at our core, people are good. I still
Right.
believe that 100%. But I was very naive about, toxicity and how people could show up and that people intentionally can be dishonest, that they can slander you, that they can be telling lies all around you. And I learned so much as a coach coming out of that because I was like, wait a minute. The people trying to help are always, and Elizabeth Gilbert talks about this too, but the people trying to help are always walking towards the problem. They're always
Mm.
identifying it, they're talking about it. The people not trying to help are constantly trying to spin things off. So you're never
Right.
looking at the real problem,
Right.
right? Like they'll talk about something like there was an instance, something was brought up, like, oh, these people were being messaged, but nobody's talking about what the messages were,
Right.
right? But people get on these bandwagons. So it helped me so much as a high performance coach because the opposite of high performance is not, people think it's laziness or like
Right.
apathy. The opposite of love is like, it's not, it's toxicity and enablement. And we have to understand as women, we, at least in data, because we've been more vulnerable about it, leadership shifting. We're shifting into that more open, transparent, vulnerable leader. It's what people want from us. But as women,
Mm.
the people have been through trauma. 2/3 of us, including myself, have gone through and we've healed, and we use it to try to help other people.
Right.
1/3 don't heal. They use it as an excuse to do the
Right.
same shit to other people their whole life. And they say, well, I have trauma. I have
Yep.
childhood issues. Yeah, you're responsible for that, right? And in
Yep.
leadership, we have trauma and we do the same thing and we don't get it. Oh, well, too bad. Somebody did that to me. And you're responsible, right? And I'm saying that way, me, I'm freaking responsible.
Right.
But the hard part, I think, is that, the 2/3 of us who have come from domestic abuse or sexual assault or, homelessness, on and on, whatever,
Yeah.
right? Like you're in the margins in some way. And maybe it's still privilege margins, but you were there in some capacity, right? Privilege as in you have other
Yep.
privileges. But anyway, but the reality is those 2/3 of us heal, but over half of those 2/3 who heal will attract the same dynamics again and
Right.
again. They learn to see it. Like these women can see these, and men who have been through it can see these dynamics, but as a society, we still don't want to talk about it. They
Right.
speak up and we still are like questioning the woman and questioning, do we trust what she's saying? And it's like, we're still not walking towards the actual issues to talk about them. And until we do, we're going to have male leaders who are the typical narcissists, egomaniacs, particularly in real estate, who are
Right.
edified because they sell, 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 but we don't deliver. Right. So I think as women, like that divine feminine is like, no, no, no. Like, I'm not working with anything that's not legitimate, that's not tangible, that isn't backed. And if I find out that you're close to my circles and you're doing any of this crap with your business or your life, I will not be associated with it. And I think the thing that is hard is it's like, we talk about like victims and villains, right? And all this stuff. To me, it's behavior. I've done off, no, I don't think awful, to be honest. I'd be lying. I've done things that weren't good in
Yep.
my life. But I also say, hey, I did this and I never want to do it again. And I need support for that. When we heal, we tell the truth, right?
Right.
So it's, sorry, I know I went on a rabbit hole,
No,
but like
I'm
toxicity, it's so interconnected,
yeah,
right?
it is. And I think um when you talk about the men, especially in real estate, and I think that it is just women. I really like the biggest thing I saw, I can't remember what the meme was, what she said, but it used to feel like women were saying we were with each other and I'm gonna put your crown on and all this shit. And it was all phony. Like it was all
Yeah.
fake bullshit.
And
And
then
the people that like on the outside of it looking in, I'm watching, I'm like, there's no authenticity. Like these women are just saying it to say it. But it feels like in the last 5 years, it's actually shifted where there's it's like this sisterhood. It feels tribal, honestly, to me.
yeah,
It feels tribal. It feels like you and I can sit down in a circle and talk, and it's different than it was 5 years ago because I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of what you can do. I'm not afraid of your success. I'm not afraid of your power. I'm like, holy shit, this power and this power equals more power. And not in the egomaniacal way, but in this, like, it just feels as though we are needing really sincerely to come together as women to heal
mhm,
everything. And not,
yep,
and I know that's a big job, but that's why you and I and the others who
yeah,
are up for it, because it feels different now.
I
It's
agree.
it's such a different experience when I can look at a woman and feel her and
Yeah,
not be afraid of that. And I love that you're saying that. And I think now the next step is really, again, just keep talking. We keep not shying
yeah,
away from it and not, I don't care. People, I mean, when I'm coaching clients, I literally, this is me most of the time. Eyes are closed, my hands on my heart. I'm saying, hold on, I'm getting a download or I'm getting something coming through or
yeah,
something. Cause I trust, like that was my big shift was I used to coach based on a checklist. Now I coach intuitively in business.
yeah,
And that on its own gave me such a level of peace and confidence in the style. And it's not for everybody. Some people still want
sure,
the checklist. That's great. But
yeah,
you come to me talking about your website, 2 seconds later, we're talking about your dad didn't show up for you
yeah,
because that matters. It matters. If you didn't feel this, you're not going to do the shit I tell you on your website. You're not going to do the shit I
yeah,
tell you about whatever. So I think I love seeing women like you, and I'm careful on how I'm wording it, but yes, you're powerful, but you're powerful. Do you know what I mean? Like it's different than the traditional, like, yes, you have all the business
yeah,
accolades, etc. But there's power to you that I can feel as a woman to another woman, as a sister to another sister. And I think it's beautiful because women need to witness the fact that we can be good in business, but we can also be all this other part. So I love, love, love everything you said. So, of course, I knew we were going to go over because, well, hello. I just felt like I knew I could talk to you all day. So, what I'm going to wrap it with is tell me, and you're welcome to come back anytime you want. We can chat about a million different things. I
yeah, I'm
talk a
sure
lot
we
about
could.
sex and sex in the like, all that stuff too. But tell me what's next for you. What's the next little bit? 3 months, 6 months, 12, what, blah blah blah. But tell me
You
what's the next
know, I
piece
mean,
of the
I'm
vision.
always clear. That's the thing for me. I think that's what I support most because to me, it's like you have to know. Like my big mission right now is international and national stages with the keynote. Like we're touring the keynote shift. We're in Miami. We're touring it around. And it's not a talk. It's an experience, and that's
Mm.
really important to me, right? It's like a culmination of everything where I get to feel people and actually whether you're here, you go a little bit here. Whether you're up here, you go a
Oh,
little bit
I
here.
just got shivers when you said
It's
feel
yeah,
people. Yeah.
it's a passion and I love it. And I think there's that. I mean, my daughter's going to university, my son's like going in, he's 20, he's older, another direction. So it's having that time as they're shifting, right? As
Yep.
people, for my life, even though I travel all the time, is going to be even less grounded, which is hard to imagine. And I have my a partner that I love. Like I came out of a really highly traumatic experience. Ironically, probably physically one of the most traumatic in my life because it pulled everything out, but healing from that broke
Yeah.
me open again. Like I've been broken open many times. So I always say, if you're there, just let it happen because, I went through immense, like intensive healing. I had to, but on the other side of it, I ended up to look and say, oh, I've always told my kids, like, I'm not straight or I'm not whatever, but I've never actually acted on being open to that. So it was interesting. I went through this trauma and then I thought, looking at my daughter as a girlfriend and saying, I'm not walking the walk there. Like, why aren't I
Mm.
open? Because I believe in energy and souls and people. So I ended up, 10 months ago to meet an amazing partner who's been lovely for me. So, I mean, I'm enjoying moving through that process and really just looking at like, yeah, shifting everything. We don't have to be, I always say, I refuse to be a statistic or a label or in a
Right.
box. I refuse. And you
Yep.
can't make me. So I'm
Yep.
just not going to. So I think that's where I'm at. Like I feel I'm moving towards more and more freedom and passion and art and creativity. Like I'm an artist. I want to express and help people.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love that it's interesting that because uh, I've come out of a marriage, although he and I are living back together as roommates, and it's interesting when you're talking about having a partner and so I'm assuming it's a girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
yeah. I'm old school, so I'm like, just is it a girlfriend or is it like what this partner is a business partner? I always get
Uh,
still
yeah.
very like
I
just
called
say
my
it
male
plain.
partners partners
Right,
too.
yeah, see, and that
Yeah.
confuses me too. I'm always like, "So, you're in business together? Wait, what?" So, anyway, but
Yeah.
it's interesting when you say energies because I think women that's another layer of womanhood that's so cool is that for men, it's very different. Like, it is. It's just a very different experience if they wanna be with another man. It tends to just seem different for them. I don't know, I'm not a man, I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
But as a woman, because energetically we speak to each other, I think that's because a lot of times people will say, well, you were married to a man. And then, like, I've got girlfriends who were with a man,
Yeah.
then they were with a woman, then they were with a man. And people, and I think I love how you say it because energetically there's just something, there's something.
Mhm.
And it's not and it's a beautiful thing to witness when a woman does go, whether it's back or and forth or whatever, but I think it's just such a cool journey. And I've got friends who are, and I've never had that experience. And that's one of those things that I find really interesting about my own journey was like all my girlfriends were like, "Oh my God, yeah, in college." Or I was like, I was a mom at 19 or 20.
I was, well, 23 with 22 pregnant. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I was like, so now coming out of that, and this could be a whole other podcast, but coming out of that, I do look around and I think, that's interesting. I've never had that experience. Am I curious about that experience? It's viewed differently to me, maybe just age and experience. But at 20, I would have been like, oh, does that mean something? Or now I'm just like, curious. That's a nice looking body. Oh, I find her attractive, right? Like it's such a different energy now at this stage of life where it's not a thing. Like you're not like, oh my
No.
God, does this mean, you're just like
Well, I
curious. And
think
I think,
yeah. I think my family's surprised. So I'm like, what? Like, I'm no, nothing's changed. Like, I don't identify. Like, it's never been a thing. Like, I've
right.
always been open, and I think it's like a course in miracles. If it's not a thing for you, it's not a thing for others, and it
Yeah.
never was for me. So I just didn't hold space for that. But I mean, yeah, it is a whole other podcast because when you get into the energies, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, what is masculine? What is feminine?
Right.
Because it's two women, right? So we can
Right.
hold that harmony, and it's really cool. It's so yeah, I'm loving that and like
That's
being in a
awesome.
kind of healthy positive space in my personal life because you can't do big things in life and business with the
No,
wrong people beside you can't, it's not
nope.
possible.
No,
No.
and I think that's part of my mission is to help women be able to play between the masculine and the feminine in a healthy way that
Yeah.
still crush it in their business because it's required. You have to be a hunter in business. End of story. But
Mm.
I love, and I mean, I talk about with clients, like I talk about where are you at in your cycle right now? Because there's PMS week, you're ready to flip a fucking table and burn the whole house down. And a lot of women do it and then they look back and they have no idea that it has to do with where they are in their cycle. And then they look back 3 days later And they're like, "Holy shit. What did I just do?" And I'm like, "Well, were you about to get your period?" Yeah. I'm like, "Remember what I say, no big decisions the week before you bleed and
No,
just hold on." But it's, you know
okay.
what? Lucky we're women. It's a beautiful, crazy tornado of
Journey.
awesomeness. And
Yes.
we're lucky to be that. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I absolutely want to have you back
Oh,
whenever
thank
you're available. I know you're chilling right now, but maybe in the next couple of months, come back and
oh,
we'll
thank
talk
you.
other stuff.
No, I love this, Carol. It's like, yeah, this is amazing. And just having it to talk, they all intertwine. So this has been such a
Yep.
pleasure. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much. Awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. And where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you?
Well, Instagram, Kathleen Black underscore is mine. We have the company. I'm on all the social platforms. Our website is kathleenblack.com. So it's easy.
Awesome.
kathleenblack.com. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right,
Thank you.
my dear. It was a pleasure chatting with you. Enjoy your weekend up north, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks. Bye,
All
everybody.
right. Bye.